black magic. And there it is. Great. Wonderful. Okay, so, can you... Good.
Yahtzee.
Good talk.
I said Yahtzee.
Yeah,
You got it.
you got it. I got it. Yes, we got it. Okay, so you were saying that you think war is inevitable because China is the threat to the incumbency in America.
That's right. Like the threat, like we've gotten used to being king of the hill, and we've got a spot that we don't want to lose. You know what I mean? And I think Americans would rather go to war to keep their spot than to lose it. And I don't know who's going to start it. I don't know. I'm not saying who's going to start what, but I think that it's going to get. I think somebody will find an excuse or something, and then I feel like the Taiwan connection is one of the most likely spots based on what I'm seeing around here and what I'm hearing. But you've been to Taiwan, so I'm curious, like, what that, if folks there are concerned about it at all,
So, what do you know about Taiwan, by the way?
I mean, I know that's where the nationalists went, after World War II, Kuomintang and the mainland, and Chiang Kai-shek went down to Taiwan and set up shop, and they've been feuding ever since, on Formosa.
Okay. And so that is the gist. I mean, that's to be they talk about themselves as though they are the China, like they're originally China, all right? The real Chinese. They call themselves the real Chinese. And I find this funny because they kind of are. They are the original aristocracy of China that essentially got thrown out, is really what they are.
Yeah.
Okay. And, well...
By the bourgeoisie.
Is exactly right. Is exactly right. And... I don't necessarily say that they are the real quote-unquote China, or if they're not the real China, but they are definitely democratic. They feel democratic, all right? They feel, they're some of the hardest working people I've ever met in my life. Like, I've come across some hard-working people in this world, but there is a confluence of cultural qualities that have caused them to be some of the most overachieving, or people that industrious because they have the feel they need to prove it to not only themselves but the world that they are something, is a big piece, because for about 50 or 60 years they haven't been a place. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
So they have, that is a huge component of them. And then another piece is that they're part Chinese, part Japanese, and they have a lot of Korean influence because the island was ruled by the Japanese for a really long time when Chiang Kai-shek showed up, if I remember correctly. So there was like the local indigenous there, and then the Japanese were there, and they basically ruled the island for like 100 and some years, 200 years. So the people have a lot of Japanese ties, a lot of Japanese heritage. And then you have the nationals came over, and they brought this Chinese aristocracy with them. They were very much like the National Registry in China, or the National Museum in Taiwan supposedly has like all of their ancient history, because the rich people like basically took all the fucking nice shit when they left. This is really what it was. Chiang Kai-shek was not a nice fucking guy, is what I'm finding. He was a barber. He just happened to be the general in charge of the people when they left. And they are ultimately, though, an incredibly, like, they're a diligent people. They seem very kind. Like, there's nowhere dangerous on the island. Okay? They are literally like, are you, hello? 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 There you are. Hello?
Yeah.
There you are. Hi.
Yeah.
Okay, I lost you.
Yep, you did, but I'm back.
Okay. So they have it's the safest place I've ever been in my life. Like, there's nowhere you can go in this city that is dangerous. Anywhere. Like, I literally was asking people, I was like, this is a major city with like millions of people in it. Like, where could I, if I had a 4-year-old that I accidentally turned my back on, where would I be upset that this girl was? Like, this little 4-year-old was walking around, and I found nobody. And I asked that question to people. I was there for like 2 months, so I fucking asked a shitload of people that question, and nobody, not one person was like, and had an answer. Everyone's like, there's nowhere. They looked at me like I was crazy, that you couldn't accidentally like endanger a child. Like, they're like, why? So I don't know if it was more mind-bending to me or to them that the question was asked, or that was the reality of the place. It's the same. Okay, they have incredible health care. They didn't care. All right, I got COVID in fucking Vietnam. All right, or excuse me, actually, I got it in Thailand. Actually, is where I got it, but I didn't get sick until I got to Vietnam 5 days later. So I literally got COVID in Thailand, got in an airplane, and not knowing I was sick, and traveled to Vietnam, where I got deathly ill for 3 weeks. I was fucking sicker than I've ever been in my life. Okay. All right.
Wow.
And then I showed up. I'm always a trailblazer, dude. I got COVID in January. Yeah.
Oh my God.
January 16th was the day, and people were we were surrounded by Chinese tourists in Bangkok, all right? And people were talking about like people getting sick, but it wasn't until January 23rd is when they shut down Wuhan, and I got sick on January like 19th or 18th. I went from like, I feel a little uncomfortable, I'm gonna take a nap, to I woke up with 103 fever for about 3 weeks. Like, I was, yeah, fucking, and I was in Vietnam, which is not a nice place to be and doesn't have great health care, and I was deathly afraid of going to the hospital that someone would figure out I was sick. Or, like, to get anybody, I didn't know what to fucking do, because, like, it was just, people were just starting to talk about it. So, like, by the time I got to Taiwan, all right, I didn't have temperature, so I was able to fly. And I went to the hospital. They like took me right in. They took care of me. It cost me $50 fucking dollars. Okay, no, in cash, wow. No insurance. Like, for COVID, it was $112 for my bill. It was crazy.
Damn, that's not bad.
Yeah.
At all. And you had to stay at the hospital for a while?
No, I literally went in. It was like, because I had stopped having fever in Vietnam. So like, I was sick there. We were there for almost a month, all right? And I literally just laid in bed the whole time I was there. And by the time I got to Taiwan, I had not had fever anymore. So they're like, there's nothing we can do. Like, you're not really sick anymore, so you like, just wear your mask and fucking wash your hands and don't do anything stupid. So like, now mind you, right, this is when they were all talking about how they were locking down our airports and everything, and you can't go in, and yada yada, was all the bullshit in February. And I literally knew, right, I was like, shit, I know I'm not sick anymore. The doctor has told me I'm not sick anymore. It's been a month, like, I'm not sick anymore. But now I'm shitting in my pants that I gotta fly to America, all right? And literally, I walked through the door, no one even asked me a question. Not fucking one person asked me a question. Now, granted, I wasn't sick, so I went through the thermal cameras, and nobody asked me any questions, but like...
No, it's been surreal.
Fucking shit in my pants!
Like, not thinking you weren't going to be able to get out, kind of thing?
Yes!
Like,
and I'm lucky, like, I got sick in Thailand before anybody even knew. COVID didn't have a name. It was called the Wuhan flu, is what people were joking about. All right, and like, I got to Vietnam, and like, I was lucky I was there for a month, because I literally quarantined in my room for a month. So I didn't like, and I didn't go anywhere because I couldn't get out of bed.
That's nuts, man. Like, you're the first, like, young person I've met that's, like, got it and really had a problem with it and stuff.
Yeah.
That must have been spooky, man. Like, sitting there, just, like, did you really, like, feel, like, deathly ill? Like, you're like, this, go either way, man. Like, kind of thing, or what?
I'll be honest. Most of it, I was just like really fucking sick. Like I was just like sick. Like I didn't feel it wasn't the flu. It felt different than the flu. That's what I kept thinking the whole time. It's just like more people were talking about this like COVID thing, and I'm like, well, I don't have the flu, but I am sicker than I have ever been in my life. So like I was very ill for a few weeks. But there was only one time where I really like I got myself out of breath and I ended up on my hands and knees coughing and I coughed up like yellow. I was like fucking drowning in yellow phlegm in my lungs. I was like, so like if an old person, like I can imagine I'm relatively healthy and young and yeah, there was like about 2 minutes there where I was like, fuck, I really would like a hospital right now, but I couldn't. So like, but it was once in 3 weeks. The rest of it, I just wanted to die. I just fucking, and, all right,
Don't want to gas.
my girlfriend was literally in the bed next to me, and she also had the pink eye, and she was like a little off. She was like, she felt fine-ish. She was, you know.
Damn. Ugh. Well, I'm glad you made it through that one. And the folks in Taiwan took care of you, I guess, huh?
No problem. So the place is nice. All right, so I apologize. You were saying about the last 12 times. So the last 12 times, there was a change of power.
Yeah, anytime that there was a rising power challenge, like an established power for supremacy, like just not like a direct challenge, just like, hey, we're on the come up and you guys have plateaued and we're going to overtake you, like economically, influentially, like whatever levers of power you want to apply to it. Like one is accumulating power and the other is not, and they're going to get overtaken. It's 12 out of the last 16 times it like led to war. I forget, some sort of like paradox, like some Greek guy came up with the theory.
Okay.
Anyways,
And
so
what?
that's been bandied about, and I look around and I sort of see the people staking out, pretty firm stances. You know what I mean? And
Now, but you
kind of feel like
had mentioned China before, though, and now you're saying people
Yeah.
are taking some firm stances. Whom, all right, are taking firm stances?
Oh, clearly our president is, and that's just good, bad, or indifferent, I kind of feel like, I can't really say exactly like what the Chinese are doing, other than that they've been using a lot of their influence. They've been using a lot of soft power to kind of to have advantages in areas. Like, they sort of kill you with 1,000 cuts, you know what I mean? It's not with like a blunt hammer to the head,
So that's very much,
like
yeah.
that.
From what I've learned about the Chinese way, that's the way. Like, that's what they do.
That's the way, yeah.
Like, they're very long, they're much longer game than 160 characters, for sure.
That's fact. Yep. So, I sort of see the table is set. The table is being set. Some of the indicators that I kind of look at, and I'm not saying it's inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying that it's kind of like a toss-up. Like, are they gonna pull on the ends of the string and tighten the knot, or are they gonna undo it? And I just don't know. Like, I just don't know. There's still like some legitimate beef with China over some of the stuff they do, but there's some legitimate stuff. I'm sure they probably feel like there's they think that they have like legitimate claims to Taiwan, and we have ties to Taiwan, and
Now,
push comes to shove, like what are people going to do? Like if China invades if the mainland invades Taiwan, and we give it only
we
cheese, like
are
going to go
feckless. We are, and they know that. This is the thing is that, now, well, I don't know, actually, I would say, like, after talking to the Taiwanese, I would like to think that they understand that the Americans are not coming to save them. But they love Trump because right now they're selling him like weapons and like giving him the respect that they want. And like the idea of like the whole world decided that it was a bad idea to put the US Embassy in Jerusalem because it takes one side, and the whole premise of like soft power and democracy is that you don't take sides in order to be in like a state position. Do you know what I mean? Like the whole premise of being like out there doing Department of State things is to not take sides, and like to move the embassy to one side is like not very. It's not politically. It's not diplomatic. Yeah, it's just not the way things are done. Like it's not like you piss people off, and like so that Taiwan knows that. Like they've seen that happen. And then they knew that, like, yeah, they got what they wanted in the short term, but, like, it did not go well. You know what I mean? So, like, they also, like, yeah, they love America right now, and they love America because they think we might come, God forbid, but, like, I think they think we're something we're not.
Yeah, I don't think Americans really have an appetite for war. Certainly not like the general population, and I think if it were going to be, I don't know if it would be like a full-on, I don't know, man, I could take on so many different permutations, Taiwan has Apaches also.
Mm-hmm. They're very well armed. I was
they got Apaches.
They've got Predator drones. They've got like all sorts of fucking missiles and shit. I was walking around one of their convention centers, and like there's a military convention, and I think I posted it on Instagram. I'm like, anybody need a Predator drone?
yeah, they definitely get they got some state of the art stuff. So I don't know, I think they're just trying to be a hard target, like play like a tortoise. You know what I mean? Like just,
they are Chinese.
Sit under their hard shell, if an attacker comes and just try to, like a tortoise, like a cross between like a tortoise and a porcupine. You know what I mean? It's like what they want to be, like, because they're never gonna go across the channel and invade mainland, but they want to make it. I think their philosophy is like, yeah, you might beat me, but you're going to have to bleed to do it,
I don't know if I do agree with that on some. I think the posturing is just a nature of war. But I think they more are, like, they look at each other as, like, lost brothers. And that they are still. Because I actually asked some Taiwanese about this question of like, what happens if they came in, or how would they, what would they do, or what, you know what I mean? Because they know they're much smaller. They know they could never, like, there's no chance that they would be able to militarily keep up with China. Like, there's very little chance that America could keep up with China today. We've got half of our fucking, our whatchamacallits, what are they called? The goddamn things that launch, what are they called? The aircraft carriers.
Yeah.
Half of our aircraft carriers are in maintenance. They can't even keep the goddamn things floating because they're 30 years old. And the new one, they bribed so much fucking money out of the goddamn thing that they can't launch ships off of it. And the elevators don't work. And like the railgun doesn't work. You know what I mean? It's like the fucking. Yeah. And it's an open secret because it's 20 years behind schedule and like $2 trillion over budget, and it still doesn't fucking shoot planes off the deck. It's like, fuck, I probably could have open source designed the thing faster than those assholes given $1 trillion. Do you know what I'm saying? And like, so like, the chance that they're building a shipyard to build aircraft carriers. They currently have 3 that are in the water, and they're building 2 or 3 more, and they're planning on turning those out. Yes, and they're not just building like the last ones they did was like they bought one from Russia, and then they reverse engineered it is the first one.
Yeah, the test vehicle. Yeah, that's like a proof of concept platform for them. So they
Exactly.
start up their own aircraft industry, right? They bought that one, and they're like, let's see how this works.
Is exactly right. And then they reverse engineered it, and they got the Liang Liang, and now these are the first ones that are their own. They're like Chinese born. They're not quite as big as the American. The American Nimitz class is still bigger physically, but they have got rail guns. Like they've got all sorts of shit that we don't have yet.
Yeah. Well, it's, I think they want like regional hegemony. You know, I'm not sure like China wants to have like world domination, but I think they want like they want that corner to be like theirs.
That I agree with.
Like, and it's like we talked about a concept in military called anti-action or AQ, right? Like that is like instead of developing like a major air force or whatever that can actually like defeat and go like toe to toe with the Americans or whoever else that might be, you know, technologically superior from an aircraft standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're gonna throw all of our R&D into anti-aircraft missiles and anti-ship missiles, and it's like a poor man's air force. It's like we'll just create something that can shoot you down. Like we don't have to develop an airplane; we just have to develop a missile.
Like,
you know,
it's an open secret that DJI, the drones, are Chinese military. Like, they've got cameras that are looking at every inch of infrastructure all over America, and like all of those could have encrypted signals back to the. You know, there's no way to know what information, what telemetry those things ship back, which is why our military doesn't use them. Like, they won't use the drones. DJI branded these, and we have nothing that's comparable. Like, our technology is nowhere near there. So, and that's the future. So, you know what I'm saying? Is drone swarms with fucking, also, you can't shoot them, you can't escape them. They're fucking AI driven. Like, it doesn't look like nukes. The next war has nothing to do with nukes. Like, what do you see?
I would agree.
What do you see happens in America? Like, we've talked about like international, but what about America? What do you think about America?
And so I think neither one of these bozos is fit to hold the office. You know, and I think that I watched the first debate, and I watched the campaigns, and I watched, you know, I've been keeping up, you know, on the side, like with what's been going on and stuff. And I think Joe Biden is an incredibly weak candidate. and I'm like, you guys had a chance to put up somebody who like there's no enthusiasm for that guy. Like I ask people, I'm like if you ask yourself, and I'm not talking about me, I'm just talking about a question I ask people. It's like, ask yourself, is there anyone that you know that voted for Donald Trump in 2016 when he won who's not voting for him this November? I don't know anybody. And then I ask myself, is there anyone that you know that did not vote for Trump that is voting for him this year? And I'm like, yeah, I know quite a few. Like, do you know anybody who's excited to vote for Joe Biden? Nope. I'm like, do you know anybody who's excited to get out and go vote for Donald Trump? I'm not saying good, bad, or indifferent. Like, the answer to that question is yes, you know? And so I'm like, you know, they had, I don't know how Joe Biden got the nomination. I'm like baffled. I'm like, how did this guy
Corruption.
end up with the nomination?
Corruption.
Like, he's like the weakest candidate since Michael Dukakis.
Corruption.
I mean, I get it. I'm just saying, like, I mean, I believe you, but I think it's like the opportunity was lost to put up anybody else that had like any sort of like enthusiasm for the base. If you're telling me that you're going to rely on feelings about I don't like the other guy to get out and vote for me, like that's not a winning strategy. It's not. You know what I mean? You might win. You know, I'm not saying that who's going to win or not, but you know, when I look around, I'm like, I'm not. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of people that don't like Donald Trump. Yes, I get that, but there's still not a lot of people that are, you know, just fired up to vote for Joe Biden. And that matters.
What do you think happens if which one wins? Like, what do you think? What do you think the outcome is to either side, or to both sides? Actually, is what I'm really curious about.
Oh, I mean, I think people are. There's a lot of people out there that are pissed about like all these like, you know, all these riots and stuff like that. It's like, you know, COVID only spreads in churches, so you can't go to church, but you know, get like a million people together on the streets. There's no COVID spreading. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of bullshit out there where people are. There's no intellectual honesty in any of the what people frame.
That I agree with. There's very little actual integrity or honesty out there today.
Yeah, left or right. You know, like I'm not.
Oh yeah.
Like both I mean,
Just
I think
people.
The Republicans have like completely lost their mind with the spending right now. You know, like just completely. Now, okay, COVID killed the economy, and so you know, both sides are like Keynesian economics, go. You know, and so quantitative easing, go. I get that, but you know, even before then, you know, the spending was just like out of this world. Was the economy booming? Yeah, I think there's an argument to say that the economy was good, and if I think Trump swings and misses on so much shit, like there's so many like he just is such a buffoon than a reality TV star. Like, I'm just like, God damn, dude. Like, if you had like an ounce of statesmanship in you, like, you could actually be a great president, but you don't, which makes you just a controversial president. You know what I mean?
You know what I heard? Do you remember in France the story about how he didn't go to the funerals in France?
Oh, like the military, like the Armistice Day or something like that? Yeah.
And like he made some excuse where he didn't go because like either the helicopter couldn't take him, and then the car couldn't take him, or there was some bullshit. Okay.
Yeah.
And he was staying in the private residence of, I believe, or it was either the private residence of the American ambassador, was in like a historic house that we own, an American-like house there, or it was the actual embassy itself, which was, it's like a historic building there. Okay. The motherfucker didn't go to a funeral, okay, or to a grave sites, and instead walked out of there with a painting and a bunch of silver figurines. Okay.
Awesome.
Okay, and then when I believe it was our ambassador, because like again, this is like U.S. territory. Okay, so like our ambassador was like, you can't fucking take that. They belong here. He's like, I'm the American president. You can get it back in 6 years after my next term. And he left with it.
Mic drop.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay. Wait, it gets better.
Not surprising.
It gets better. Some of it were not real. They were art, like they were like replicas, is my understanding. And I think we have the real one. He stole a fake something. Okay? Like, let that sink in.
What a douche, you know. Oh my god. Yeah, it's stuff like that when you're just like, dude, how is this guy? And then you're like, there's guys like, I can't vote for this guy. And then you look over on the other side and you see like, oh my god, who is that? Is that my other choice? Oh my God, I can't do that either. Like,
But the
that's
idea
kind
of
where
like
I'm at right now.
democracy,
But so here's the thing,
he literally robbed us. Because that's not personal product. It's, yes, he's the president, but it's not his shit. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's American stuff. Like, God forbid he loses. Someone should literally watch him to make sure he doesn't steal stuff.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. So back to your original question, though.
Yeah.
Like,
What happens if Joe Biden
media,
wins?
so let me finish about the Trump thing. So
Yeah.
the media right now is like, like when a stock, you've heard the term of pump and dump,
Yeah.
right? Well, right now, but they're pumping up how far ahead Joe Biden is in the polls. Like, Joe Biden is 16 points ahead in every poll. Like, Joe Biden is going to be a landslide. It's going to be a landslide. And they're pumping up this narrative that, like, so that if Trump wins, that the only way that it could have happened would have been fraud. And that, my friend, is a dangerous thing to posit, Like, the narrative is Trump has no chance in hell. Joe Biden is absolutely going to win.
And you know
He's
what's...
up by like a million votes. But if the turnout, I mean, these are just polls, right? Like, it comes down to like who actually votes. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so, and with the electoral system the way that it is, and so I feel like if Trump, no kidding, wins fair and square, it will not be presented as fair and square. There is going to be a shit show if he is, declared the winner, right? And in some of these places, where like the mail-in voting, like in some of these places, they're like, yeah, as long as it's postmarked by election day, we're going to count it up to 2 weeks later. Do you know how 2 weeks, like in a place where like an election is close to like count all of the mail-in ballots and stuff like that, there's like an eternity politically, and it's like
There will be
holy
chaos, literally.
it will be chaos, right? But it's being set up that way. I feel like it's intentionally being set up that way. It's not like a dumb, like if you're like a Machiavellian perspective on things, it's not dumb. Like, and you can sort of see the rationale behind it. But from like a health of the nation standpoint, it's abominable. Like what's going on. It's like this whole mail-in voting thing. I do not agree with it. I'm like, if you can vote, get your happy ass up off your couch, wear a mask, and go vote. Like, this mail-in shit is going to be like a shit show about, like, nobody's going to concede on election day either way, right? And like, we're all used to, like, waking up the next morning and, even if it went late in the night, like, have, like, an election watch party. And it's like, by the end of the night, we're going to know who won. Like, that ain't going to be the way that it is this year, bro. It is not going to happen that way. It's going to be like Bush Gore times 10 or worse, Like, that's what I think. And I think if Biden wins, or if there's any sort of, like, fuck, man, like, it's going to be ugly, dude. I'm glad I'm kind of in Alabama, like, where everyone has a gun, and, like, nobody fucks with you and stuff. Like, I don't want to be anywhere near a big city on November 3rd. Nowhere near a big city, like, at all.
I've been thinking about that a lot because I don't necessarily, like, I'm curious what's going to happen. But, wow, yeah.
They're pumping the narrative, man, so that people are going to get, like...
See, but hold on, I will say I agree with that. But that actually, like, this is the thing, is I watch both sides. Like, I watch both newses, like, which I'm one of the few people in the world who actually watches both. And I'm actually, I also like to think of myself as one of the few people in the world that actually has, like, conservative friends. And is truly a liberal.
You have to read and watch both sides to pick out the truth.
Yeah.
And the truth is, it's in there somewhere.
It's all a lie, is what I believe.
You know what I mean?
Most of it is bullshit. Okay, so I read something that I quote it all the fucking time, and I guarantee, I say it all the time. My mom fucking now, she's like, oh, here he goes again. Wonderful is the effect of impudent and persevering lying. Long have the ministers hired the gazetteers to twist into every form of lies our being in anarchy, such that the world believes them, such that England believes them, such that the ministers themselves believe them. But what's more wonderful is I believe them myself. We're a nation of 13 colonies in 11 years, and what country has gone 150 years without revolution? The people cannot be all and always well informed, and the gravity of the facts they misconceive will be in direct proportion to their discontent. To ignore it is lethargy and the forerunner to the death of liberty. The solution is to pacify them and to pardon them and to set those straight to facts. The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants is its natural manure. Thomas Jefferson, by the way.
Well, yeah, I recognize that quote, man. Absolutely. He's not wrong. He's not wrong.
And everybody remembers the tree of liberty part. Like the idea of like, liberty is an organism. It's an organic thing that grows or is killed in the light. Another quote. I don't know where they come from, but I know them. And
well, bug season is being killed from both sides right now.
by
I don't feel like either side
is honest.
is on the right side.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Like
That's the first part of what I said, though, is the idea of wonderful is the effect of impudent. It basically, it's amazing what happens when you lie over and over and over and over again that people fucking believe that shit. Like, the world believes it, fucking Americans believe it, like, all the other senators and fucking people, they believe it. But what's amazing is I believe that fucking stupid shit myself, is what he said. Like, he literally said it. He's like, I buy the bullshit, and I know it's bullshit.
yeah, like that whole thing, like that whole idea about like we're the greatest country on earth. And it's like, I mean, we're pretty good, you know, but we got a lot of problems. Like, there's a lot of places that are a lot happier than us. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, we got a big military, a big economy, and you know, everybody can vote. That's great, you know. But I mean, we got some shitty underbelly, you know.
Oh, yeah.
That,
I looked up the most dangerous cities in the world, and that list is populated by Venezuela, Brazil, Colombia, and the United States, and South Africa. So it's like
yeah.
all the places you would imagine, like Caracas and fucking Rio and Bogota, but like,
Oh, there's Chicago. Oh, there's Washington, D.C. Oh, there's Atlanta. Oh, hey.
yes, it's.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's not. And there's a lot of reasons for it. Like, but it's not going to be fixed easily, and that's the thing I'm worried about. Is like, how do you fix it? Like, it's not war, because we will have a civil war. Like, I think that part is inevitable. I don't think people are starting to talk about it now, but I've been thinking about that shit for years, if you remember. And like, I don't think there's any way to avoid it. But the question is what happens afterwards? Like, what do we do after that? Now we all kill each other. Great. Then what?
It's Hunger Games, bro. Hunger Games.
It's fucking 2020.
You know,
That's
the
stupid.
provinces rose up against Pan Am, man.
This is not fucking Game of Thrones, dude. But really, like, for real, like, what happens? Like, that's the part I don't think anybody's talking about yet.
Well, the part that they don't think about is because so few people actually have seen. Fewer and fewer people have actually laid eyes on war.
Truth.
You know, and war is something that they see in a movie, and 90 minutes later it's over.
It's
you know, and that ain't how that shit works, man. Like, I'll tell you a story about. We were in Ghazni province, right? We were responding to a troops in contact, and it was like early morning, like we had just come on shift, right? And the guys that were on the night shift had been out there, you know, they had been out there all night, you know, hunting down these dudes that were trying to, you know, pin down some of our guys. And and the battle went like into the morning, and like it was time for the battle handover with the day crew, right? So we went, got in our birds, like hauled ass over the mountain ridge and stuff. Showed up on station, got the battle handover, so those guys could bug out because they were low on gas, bullets and shit. And like we come on station and we're getting like talk on to like where these guys, like where our guys think the bad guys are. And it takes us like a while, and I'm in the lead, I'm in the front seat of the lead aircraft,
Okay.
and so I'm running the gunner station on this mission, and I'm using my sensors and trying to hunt these guys down, and I was getting like the worst talk on from the guy on the ground. Like he's like, no, it's 200 meters north of your last rocket, and I was like, well, he had his north and his south backwards.
Yeah.
Like he thought he was facing north, and he was actually facing south. So all of his corrections to our round were like
backwards.
getting worse, not better. You know what I mean? He's like, yeah, and I'm like, fine. So like 45 minutes later, like we finally sort this shit out, and it's like back to this one building, right? It was like a long single-story building, and he's like, we're taking fire, we're taking small arms and RPG fire from this building, and it's like, I need a fucking missile like on this building, and by this time we had a B-1 bomber that showed up over top of us, right? And so the B-1 comes over the net and he's like, hey man, I've got a 1,000-pounder that'll take care of business. Where do you want it? Give me a coordinate. So dude was like, great, here's the coordinates. And so he tells us, the Apaches, he's like, hey, I need you guys to push off to the east, so there's going to be like a 2,000-pound bomb, like falling through the air. It's like, yeah, we're
get the fuck out of the way.
Yeah. And so we push off. He's like, I want you to keep your sensors on the target area, so that if there's any sporters, that you guys can mop up the sporters, that's right. And we're like, yeah, no problem, bro, got you covered.
Yep.
So we push off, and we're waiting for this bomb to hit. 2,000-pound bomb. That's a big son of a bitch, dude. Like, just to give you an idea, the missiles that I shoot only have 100 pounds. They're only like 100 pounds total. Like, rocket body, like the missile body, the propellant, the guidance system. There's only like 9 kilos of actual high explosive on the thing. This is like a 2,000-pound bomb, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm watching. He says, here it comes, all right? So we're watching. Dude, first one hits. He dropped 2, by the way. First one hits. I mean, like the biggest flipping explosion I've ever seen in my life. Just kicks up this massive explosion and dust cloud and stuff. I mean, it looks like damn mushroom cloud, right? Second one comes in. It takes out another third of the building, right? Like first one took out like the last 1/3. Second one comes in, takes out the middle 1/3, which means that there's only like one other 1/3 left, right? And I'm sitting there, I'm looking through like the haze and all the dust and all that shit. I mean, and they were taking fire from the building, right?
Yeah.
I'm watching. A few seconds, maybe like 30 seconds. I'm watching. Nobody's coming out. And I start to see somebody. I see movement, right? And I'm like, what the fuck is that, right? So I zoom in. And I look. Dude, it was like a little kid, like runs out, followed by another little kid, followed by a man, and appears to be like a woman after that. Right, and the man walks up, like, crawls out of the rubble, looks in the direction of the American, throws up his hands. It's like, what the fuck, right? And the little kid is just bolting, right, like running as fast as he can, like away from this building, right? The family just survived 4,000 pounds of bombs.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I'm over the net. I was like, check fire. Like we've got movers in the vicinity of the target area. Check fire. And I mean, what had happened was the Taliban had taken over this family's house, right? And was like, we're going to start attacking Americans in your house. Shut the fuck up, right? And they were. Like, we had Americans pinned down, taking hostile fire from that building. It was a valid target, 100% valid target, right? But there's these casualties, you know, that, like, those, like, I can't imagine what happened with that family, you know, that, they survived. I don't know how they survived. 4 of them, right? 2 little kids and shit. I was just like, it shook me. It shook me, like, to see that. And like, you see stuff, there's a lot of, we sit here and we throw these words around about, like, oh, Civil War. Like, the last Civil War, you know, was ugly.
Not good.
And they all are, right? And I don't think, and there's so many people that don't even, like, they have no concept what they're talking about when they talk about, oh, yeah, you know, Civil War, big deal. And it's like, no, it's like, it took 100 years of Reconstruction to get over the last one. You know, 1865, and then the Civil Rights Act in 1969 or whatever. And, well, it took a long time. And, you know, just to get,
I do
it could
believe
take another 100
America,
years, you know?
but America stands for something.
Sure. Yeah. But
Used to.
I don't know if there's enough people out there.
Used to. I think
There's pockets.
I think everybody still believes that. There's just a few deep fucking pockets who would like us to, like the idea of divide and conquer. It's as old as time. And you pit a bunch of people against each other, and then you sit back and you wait, and then you come in and you save everybody for themselves.
But it's not as geographically defined as, like, north and south. Like, on this side of the nation, you know what I mean? Like, it's just huge.
It's different
you know
this
what I mean?
time.
Like,
It's global.
you got
Like, this thing, people know it. And this is the part I've learned since I've been traveling, is that everybody in the world feels the same thing. And I think a little bit, and I haven't been out since the COVID, but I can tell you what people were thinking, or at least what I think people were thinking. I can't promise you I'm not putting words in their mouth, but, like, people still kind of believed in the American dream, and they kind of thought it was real, but, like, everywhere's got its problems, and there were excuses, and there were, like, you know, it was excuses, and people could, like, see past it because of what it was. And now, I think people are full on, like, in the world, I think people are full on, like, Jesus, look at them. Oh my God, if it could happen there, how far are we away from that? Like,
yeah.
and, like, but the other side of it is that most places, like Colombia, or or Vietnam or Thailand, or they all know that they work for some guy. There's like a fucking king somewhere, or a drug lord, or whoever the fuck is in charge of that. The guy with the biggest gun. Like, basically, the government is the people with the biggest guns in your locale. And, like, that's who's the government. So, but most people know that, like, they can't do anything about that. Like, the chances of them being able to do something about that are slim. It's only in, like, some parts of Northern Europe where it's, like, actually really, like, real democracy still, sort of. In some places, like, but, like, I think most of the rest of the world, at least the aspirational world, kind of looks at America and goes, wow, that looks a lot like fucking Russia, or something like that. You know what I mean? It's not what, I don't know what, they don't look at it like it's America anymore, though. They look at it like it's like we're something different.
Part of that, the first part of any of that is to cast doubt on the legitimacy of your republic with the election. And you see that happening, like, right now. Like, everybody's like, the only way the other guy wins is if the other side cheated. You know?
But both sides are saying that, and both sides believe it.
Both sides are saying that, yes.
That's true.
And so that's when you really start to things start to get dicey, and where you're on, like, a precipice. You know what I mean? It's like when you cast doubt on the legitimacy of your electoral process.
That's not democracy.
You know?
When there is because it's not when you cast doubt. Like, people draw their own conclusions, and that's the whole premise, is that, like, the idea of a republic or a democracy is that, like, what we all believe is what we hold true, and, like, we now believe our democratic process is broken on both sides. Like, I don't think it's like they're telling us it's broken. I think we just believe it already. Like, I don't think there's any amount of any telling me that, like, it's not broken or it is broken that would change my mind. You know, I think people know it's been broken for a long time. I think it's what it is. They're just coming to realize that we've been robbed in the last fucking 8 years by the rich people.
There's some of that. There's some of that for sure.
You know,
I don't know, man. I just know that it could. I don't think in my neck of the woods, you know, there's going to be much unrest. You know, like South Alabama, you know, there's no. Everybody here believes, like I said, the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, there's no warring factions in South Alabama. Like, everyone here is voting for Trump. You know, like, everyone to a man is voting for Trump. You know?
Yeah.
And so, and like, there's no one that's gonna like rise up and riot. It's like, even if there was, you know, folks on the southeast corner of town, it's like, dude, they know they ain't gonna do that shit. Like, not in this area. You know, like, you know, Jim Bob's got, you know, 3 pistols in his car and probably 2 more in his pocket. You know what I mean? And so, yeah. But the cities and the places where things are like, like the guy next door, you know, is like completely 100% on the other side of the spectrum from you, you know, and there's 500,000 of those people, you know, like,
consensus is much more difficult to come to.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, so on the one hand, I think there's going to be some places that are going to see, you know, flare-ups and stuff, but is it going to go national? I don't think so, but I think it could be pretty, it's going to get real for some people, I think.
I agree with that.
It's just,
and I think
I don't know.
It's not just America, though. Like, that's the thing, is like, I think the rest of the world is frustrated about being under the American thumb, or at least a lot of places are, and, like, so I think that's why Bitcoin's taken off, is like, people just don't want to be under anybody else's fucking control. Like, I think that's the one thing like, all people share, not just Americans, is that I think all people want to live simply and in their own way. And if they live simply and in their own way, and they can do as they please, I don't think they want to stop you from living simply and in your own way. It's only when people, like, it's like, get the fuck out of my way, is their problem. And then there's, like, the 1% of people that, like, are going to fuck with people no matter what. Like, they're just assholes, or they're maniacal, or they're, like, they didn't get ugly when they were kids, you know? But, like,
sociopath.
but most people just want to be left alone. They want to have a nice little family and a nice piece of land and don't want to fuck with anybody else. Like, I think that's true everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And I also think most people believe that rich people are beyond borders now. Like, they've got multiple passports, they've got money offshore, they've got yachts, and fucking, they could be anywhere. It doesn't matter. Like, no amount of laws in this country will stop the people who are in charge today. Is a problem.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah, they're like you said, beyond borders. Yeah, they're kind of, the long arm of the law ain't quite long enough, you know.
No, literally.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, that's one of the reasons why I really appreciated the time that I spent living in Europe. You know what I mean? Like, it's not until you really get a chance to step outside of it that you kind of come back. Like, I gotta be honest with you, I was happy to be coming back to the States. I was gone for a while. I was like, man, I miss some parts of this place that, like, I can't, you know, like, Europe's beautiful and Europe's, you know, sophisticated and it's pastoral, you know, and all those things that it is, you know what I mean? And they do a lot of things right, you know. I can't fault them for that, but that's like their culture. But
it's not home.
Step outside of it, you know. But it's not home exactly, and it's not. They don't do everything right, you know, but they do some things right that we get wrong, you know. So it's really easy to see like, oh shit, like I had not had visibility on how badly we did this thing. You know what I mean? Like, no, like the education, like for kids. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially in Germany. You know what I mean? Like how, like it really does. Like the village. But one thing that Europe has that like America doesn't, like especially in like the Nordic countries and stuff.
Beers
like,
that are older than our whole country.
Yeah, well, yeah, like I did some operations with the game, like while we were over there, you know, and like we had some conversations about like how they were able to have such peaceful, you know, why their society seemed to work, and why everybody seemed to be pulling in the same direction, like
Yeah.
on so many different things that, you know, that are really difficult for us in America to do. And he's like, we have and he was very diplomatic. He said, we have a homogenous society. And that was his way of saying, everybody here is white, and we all have the same culture, and so we all kind of want the same thing. So it's really easy to get a lot of shit done when everybody kind of wants to do the same thing, you know? And that was, he said, we have a homogenous culture. And I was like, yep, all right, I'm picking up what you're throwing down. You know what I mean? Like, so the...
Part of me understands that from a psychological perspective, like the idea that it's easier to work together with people when you understand what they're going to do. Like, if you don't have to think about what are they thinking about, like you kind of get what, you know, when you get somebody, you don't have to question every move that they make. You just kind of like, they do what they're doing and you kind of do what you're doing and you can work together easily. It's only like when people like, literally like, I was talking about this with Jordan, I'm having problems with Jordan, whatever, I digress. Like my own behavior leads me to do certain things just as a person. It's who I am. And like, I can't change that. I do certain shit. And there are other people in this world who do things just differently because they were born differently. And like, it's hard to work together. Like it is. But at the same time, like, I do believe that diversity of thought and of experience and of backgrounds and of vision, like these different viewpoints, like having a different viewpoint on the same problem is one of the most powerful solutions we have as humans. Because when we do all think the same, like when every tool you have is, or when the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And like having somebody who looks at the world like it's a wrench is a very important thing. You know, even if you don't get along with them, though.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So
that's one of the ways. I think it's one of the strengths of like the military. But go ahead, I won't interrupt you.
I've been trying to solve a very difficult problem. Interesting, and I really do think about what's next. Like, what happens after we all decide to try to kill each other? Because I don't think there's any stopping us. We're already whipped up into a fury. But the better question is, how do you pick up the pieces? Like, this is something that I've been thinking about for a few years now. And I think there are some answers. Did you watch Elon Musk, by the way, and when he talked about Neuralink, the Neuralink presentation?
No, I missed that.
Okay, so like Elon Musk is an amazing person. Like the guy is shooting. He's NASA and the Russians are paying him to shoot rockets into space. Mind bending. Okay. That alone is mind-bending. But, like, the fact that he, like, invented the electric car industry, he's building tunnels underneath LA, and, like, he invented fucking, it's amazing, I digress. So he's building a new company called Neuralink, where it's two-pronged. I think it actually probably should be three-pronged. The first part is they're creating robots that do the surgery to install computer chips in the brain, like the ability to like wire to a computer, and it's bidirectional communication. So it can like, it senses your brain and it can send you information. And then the second part is the actual device. So like the actual microchip, and then more importantly, like the filaments that they like put in, like the wires that they put into your brain in order to like shock that part there. Like it was actually amazing. Like so like you don't bleed in the surgery because they like can X-ray or like they image so they know exactly where the blood vessels are. And because the probes are smaller than the space between the blood vessels and they're bendable, they like feed the probe through between the blood vessels so that you don't bleed in the surgery, but they like still push this tiny wire all the way wherever it needs to go. Okay, they had pigs. Hello? Oh no. Okay. We're calling back. So it's a good friend, Andrew Manny. We went to college a long time ago. Brilliant guy. Hardworking, diligent, just... a lot of fun.
Your call has been
Wish I
forwarded
had
to an
that
automated voice messaging system. 85.
Hey, man, I was going through South Alabama. It's like a black hole for my signal sometimes.
No problem.
Yeah.
Glad you had to drive, man. It's been a long time. When was the last time we talked? A year ago? It's been a while.
I was driving. Yeah, it was like almost exactly a year ago, a little bit more, because we were driving. I think I was in Montana, driving eastbound, like literally in the car with the wife in tow and the family and stuff, driving from one cross country to my new base. I think was when I talked to you last.
Okay.
No, it was North Dakota. North Dakota, I think, is where I was.
That I do remember. You were like in the middle of nowhere. I remember you were like in Wyoming or something, and I was like, "What did you do there?"
Yeah. That's you never know. You never know.
You're telling me you never know where you'll end up. Okay.
Yeah, but the difference is that you have a little bit more autonomy over like when and where and why you go somewhere. It's like someone says, "You go
there," and you go. That's true. That's very
I'm like,
different.
Roger that shit.
I don't do
here
well
I go.
with that. I don't do well. That's one thing that like actually one of my problems is like doing things, but I digress.
It's the price, man. It's the price I gotta pay. You know?
But you know what? It's cool. You've been dreaming about it forever, and you worked so hard. I mean, I remember the years, literally years, you worked for it.
Yeah, it was pretty painful for a while.
I remember. That sucks, man. But it's cool. You're here now. It's great. In the rear view.
They kept telling me no, and I'm like, nope, try again.
Yeah, not a good answer. I'm not okay with that.
I don't like that answer is not acceptable. Try again.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so like, did you hear the part about what he's doing? Like, so he's making these.
Yeah, like tapping into the brain. Like
Yes.
you're saying that they don't bleed because they
Amazing.
They kind of drowned out. Yeah.
Okay, and then so they put it in a pig, and then they took one out of another pig. So like they basically put it in and took it out, and they were both fine. It doesn't like do anything to the pig, and like it's very rudimentary. But again, it's like looking at like a Commodore 64 computer. You know, it works, yeah, but like. So like every time the pig touched something with its nose, it would like light up the chip. It was pretty amazing. Okay, so he said something interesting in this talk though, and what he said is the idea of having an idea in your mind and being able to send it to somebody. Okay.
Okay.
This to me is
like an email, like an email through the ether from one brain to the next,
bingo.
kind of thing.
Like send a thought to somebody else. Okay. And I've been toying around with this idea for a while of the idea of I think we should program our government. Like I think there should be an app for that. And just a lot of the shit is just like literally paper shuffling and like why can't we program that? There's so much stuff that we've done that when we put it in a spreadsheet and like actually programmed it, it worked much better. Like the other side is that blockchain technology is I think I've talked to you about blockchain before, but it's the idea of digital trust. And I know that's hard. I'll talk about that some other time. That's important. So now, I believe though that if there's a system that we all trust, like a digital system that we trust, and that digital system is representative of our will. Like the idea of if I'm on a desert island, what does the Constitution look like? It looks like whatever the hell I want it to say. It's whatever I feel. And going back to Elon Musk, what Elon Musk said is imagine I could send you an idea. So I can send this idea to you. All right. In algorithmics, to me, that says that's a data shape. Like there is some kind of data shape because if you're going to send it to somebody, you have to encode the data and then you have to decode the data. Like you have to turn it into ones and zeros to send it across the wire, and then it has to turn back into a thought. It's just like you send a web page to somebody. Like a web page is a bunch of ones and zeros in transit, but it's like HTML and CSS and JavaScript for the developer, and for me, it's a bunch of blocks and shapes and shit I can click on. It's a digital representation of a visualization that I can interact with is a web page. But it's really, it's in implementation, it's an encoded text string and a bunch of ones and zeros and like a lot of technical bullshit, but it's basically the idea is so that the designer who designed the web page and then you, the viewer who view the web page, can you see the same thing, and it means the same thing to you. That's the important part. It means the same thing to you as it does to them. Is the idea of imparting that meaning to somebody, but you have to turn it into ones and zeros to get it from one place to the other. So we have these processes that basically do that for us, and that's how the internet works in a fundamental way. So in Elon Musk's thing, if you're going to send an idea to somebody, that to me has a data shape, all right, which means you can turn it into a class. You can, and I believe this is fundamentally how the brain works. There's a lot of reasons why I can get to why I believe that, but I believe that, and I digress. So, my idea of freedom is some shape, all right, and your idea of freedom is some shape. And the way it works in programming is that you take A plus B and you do what's called an operator override, and there's some programming and mumbo jumbo and an algorithm in the back, and it turns into C. You get what's called the sum of those two classes. And it can work however you want it, but it's a programming. It's the idea of your freedom plus my freedom equals our freedom. All right? So
okay.
I believe that is how democracy should work.
All right, I'm following you. Is there any bias in the programming?
And that's the whole premise, is that in order for it to work, it has to be programmed open source. It has to be open. Everybody can see it. No private algorithm like Google. No Facebook, someone can steal your shit. No...
Nothing proprietary, yeah.
None of that.
Proprietary shit, right?
No CIA or deep state can change your record about you and your life is permanently scarred. None of that shit. That should not be that has to be built into the system for it to work.
Do you foresee an issue where statistical outliers skew the outcome? Bias it in a direction that is, on balance, a net negative?
I do believe, and this is something that just like Thomas Jefferson said, that wonderful is the effect of, like basically you pay newspapers to write shit and people believe it, and then all of a sudden, like, what people believe is what's true.
Perception is reality.
It is. And what people know is what they believe. What they believe is how they act. And how they act is what really is the outcome. So, I
think it's a promising. Continue.
So, when you go back to the beginning of democracy, and I'm no philosopher, but Plato was talking about the idea of philosopher kings, that ideas should be in charge. Like the people who are you shouldn't live by the sword, you should live by wisdom. And to defeat biases, the idea of the shapes of information. I want to tell you a little bit about that. So I watched a TED Talk, and in that TED Talk, this guy was I don't remember what he did. I have to Google it to put a reference. But he said when a speaker talks in front of an audience, an amazing thing happens is that the audience's brains start to look the same, like they start to fire the same, which is kind of amazing because when you have the nurture and the nature, we all come from different parents and we all went through different circumstances. So by all of our psychological understanding of how we work and how we tick, there's that nurture and that nature that makes our brain. And this is the amazing part, is what they found is when the speaker is speaking and they're engaging and people are following, their brains look the same when they fire. It's like when you think of The Simpsons, everybody's brain fires the same shape of a lightning bolt. Right? You know what I mean? Because there's those lightning bolts that fire through the brain. And that was kind of amazing, is that the brains, even though we're different, we're wired differently, and we're built differently, and we're born differently, the data is the same in our minds. If there's a shape of the data that, of The Simpsons, and it, lives in the brain like that, and I can't tell you more than that, but this is my understanding of it. And...
Yeah, I'm following you.
Okay. Now, these types of information are called graphs. It's a whole theory in what I'm coming to learn is that it's instead of a table of, and I don't mean a graph like an X and Y graph, it's called nodes and edges. It's the idea of our interconnected world has all of these dots like stars, and all of the stars have a number of lines that are connecting them, and some have a number of lines that connect to a bunch of different stars, and some of them have one line in and one line out. But when you step back from this picture of all these dots with all these lines, you get this shape. And you can kind of go from one dot to the other dot to the other dot through this shape of stars across the lines. All right? And the stars are nodes, and the lines between them are called edges. And the shape that is created is a graph. It's so what I think is that another data point is that machine learning algorithms tend to use graph theory. A lot of the programming, when you look at a lot of interrelationships of data and relationships of data, it's much better to use a graph type of a database rather than a tabular database because the relationships between the data points are important, not the information contained at the data point. And that's how our brain works. That's what they're coming to find is these lightning bolts and all of our neurons are the nodes and the axons between them are the edges. And so when the lightning bolt fires through your brain, it looks like a certain shape, and that's your representation of, say, freedom, or that's your representation of The Simpsons, or that's your representation of a table.
Gotcha. Okay, got it.
Right? And you think of a table, and sometimes you think of a yellow table, or you think of a blue table, or you think of the table that I was at when I was with that girl, and then the next thing you think about is oh man, that girl and her perfume smelled like coconut. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The idea of how those pieces of information are connected is the important part to how we understand information. Like, our brains are wired, because that's literally how the neurons are connected to each other, is that there's a shape, and this was proven by that guy who was like, as I'm talking, everybody's brain looks the same. Like, when they put them in the MRIs, like, their brain fired similarly. Like, certain areas of the brain, like, it's mind-bending to me, but it's true. So, the person who can speak about the topic and can interrelate the topic with the most other relevant pieces of information, that is the nature of wisdom. Wisdom is one of those things, is because our behavior as humans and the world at large is very complex. And generally, people who have a good ability to predict what's going to happen next, like, and you think of, like, in simpler times, like when there are tribes, like the guy who was best able to prepare everybody, like a lot of times it was the guy who had the biggest sword, but like, when talking about wisdom though, it's the one who could make everybody's lives better. It was the one who, like, they trusted to have the right answer. They bring wise men, like when I think of a wise man, it's the one who, like, has the answers. And that comes as a function of being able to relate a lot of different things and look at problems from different ways, and being able to understand one's own bias when looking at the information, so that, like, you're not just getting your answer, you're getting a good answer. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of these pieces that come into any topic that one needs to talk about. Like the idea of how should we act in a pandemic? Like, that is a topic that I think is beyond the wisdom of one individual. Like, one would have to study economics and biology and chemistry, you know what I mean? Like, it's impossible to learn all of those ideas, you know what I mean? And
too many domains of learning.
Correct.
You have to take, like, you have to have a PhD in, like, 300 things.
Correct. To have the really good answer, correct. But the idea of, what's an easy, like seatbelts. Like, there's somebody who studied about seatbelts, and they've read every article, and they know, like, seatbelts in this situation did this, and in this situation it did this, and in this situation it did that. So when they talk about their idea, and you, like if you were to talk to the camera, and, like, you were to take all the words, and, like, you could slice it up into ideas, and those ideas are nodes. It's like the idea of the seatbelt saved the person here. The seatbelt killed the person there. You know what I mean? Like, the seatbelt was made of this type of fabric. This type of fabric has been tried. You know, there's all sorts of data points. I don't know what the fuck, you know, I don't even know how to explain. I don't know what questions to ask about seatbelts, but, like, the guy who could talk to the camera and talk about all of them, and then once you slice it up, you could create a graph of understanding, and literally you could watch through the video of him talking about all these different data points. It's the idea of, like, you know, when you watch those books of, like, a paint your own picture or follow your own ending book, you know, where you read through and it says if you want to go with the bad boys, go to page 12. If you want to save Sally Sue and go for ice cream, go to page 3. Do you remember those?
Yeah, choose your own adventure.
Exactly. Yes.
Choose your own. So let me interject.
Yes.
Because you raised a question.
Great.
So I kind of feel how you are describing this to me, the way that I'm thinking about this is that you're talking essentially about shapes, and I think about, like, a roadmap, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if I could
Bingo.
like, you know, beam this roadmap of data straight to your brain, right?
Yep.
So when we talk about roadmaps, the piece that I think is a major hurdle, and that I don't know the answer, but as, like, if I think of a map that has, like, cities on it, right? Like a map of the U.S., right? You've got Atlanta and Detroit and Dallas, right? And, like, these are, like, your nodes that you keep talking about, right?
Yep.
And I feel like the cities, for our minds, like, these nodes are based on our experiences, right? Our experiences of how we've interacted with the world around us, like, you know, experiences with what creates the what creates kind of the foundational, the imprint, right?
What I call it is our belief. Like a belief, like your belief, and that's the word I've chosen. It's like all of the ideas that pull together in order to make you feel that feeling in that moment. Like in that instant, I believe this. And that is just...
I get it. I'm tracking with you 100%.
Awesome.
And so the part that I think would be a challenge is that, you know, if you beam some directions to me, an imprint of like, go 1 mile down Main Street and turn left on 33rd Avenue.
Yep.
And then turn right on, you know, 42nd Place. And then 3 houses down on the left, and that's your house, right?
Yep.
But those directions in Atlanta get you to a totally different place than they do in Dallas, you know? And so I feel like each person kind of comes with like their own sort of like roadmap, and you beam it to one person, and you get the result you're looking for, because you guys are both, you know, your belief, you know what I'm saying? And I think that is the challenge, is to translate it. It's the translation of that onto the different
people.
You know,
Exactly, because there's going to be pieces that overlap and pieces that don't.
Right. Translation is the key on that, I think.
And that's the encoding piece. And now,
if you start off with an idea like, I'm thinking about ice cream and snowflakes, and it shows up in someone else's mind as like, I'm thinking of, you know, a 3-headed demon, you know, you know, what the fuck is wrong with you?
What about if you said ice, or you said snow to an Eskimo? And they'd be like, what kind of snow?
Yeah, exactly. Right, yeah. They're like, what are you talking about? There's only one kind. What do you mean? Yeah.
The white kind.
No, there's like...
like the 40, you know what I mean? But yeah, like, okay. So, okay, you're right. And this is the part that matters to democracy. Is that you're 1,000% right. Is that there's going to be some stuff that just doesn't overlap. But what I think is that most people get the idea of living simply in their own way, and they don't want to fuck with anybody else, like they don't want to mess with you, and they don't want you to mess with me, like they don't want to defend themselves, and they don't want to attack you, they just want to live simply, and like, easy, okay?
I got you. Okay.
If that is the shared point with which we start with, because this thing is going to have to start somewhere, like, this is what I really believe, is that we're going to have a constitutional convention. Like, if we're going to have some form of democracy or any form of future in America, we are going to have to talk about how we're going to live together. Because at the moment, it doesn't seem like we're all that happy with each other, and it needs to change. So there's one of those things, it's like, we will have to talk about it. So if you start at the point of, we all just want to live simply in our own way, and I don't want to mess with you, and you don't want to mess with me, and then from there, if we can agree to that, like there's a shared middle ground, and what I really want to do is the preamble to the Constitution. It has everything government is supposed to be, and nothing that government shouldn't be. It's like important, and change one word from form to find. So now that's all that the document starts as. So that is what freedom is. If you agree to this, and this is the way I think it works, is that all you have to do to be part of the discussion is to agree to live by the solution once we figure it out. But it's not actually a solution until we codify it, just like they did before with the codified the Constitution, and then Herbie Hancock wrote really big with his big signature. But like, was it John Hancock, not Herbie Hancock? Herbie Hancock. He's a jazz musician. That's funny. What do I know? Yeah. But the idea is like, as if we all start at a common ground, like I think we should like liberty is really what the definition of like we the people is liberty, is my freedom in the context of your freedom. And if we're going to talk about it, that's fine, we'll talk about it. We have the power of the computer in order to, like, actually help us organize our discussion, which didn't happen before. And if we come to a solution, I will abide by it. That's all that's needed to start.
Yeah. The alternative is idiocracy.
We're living in it. We have an old guy who doesn't know how to fucking, like, 2 old guys who don't know how to talk.
I know, dude. I'm telling you, man. It's like that's like
Oh.
that's like a prophetic movie, dude. Like, that's crazy, man. I like the promise and the innovation that you're and what you're thinking of. I mean, you're at least talking and thinking about solutions instead of just what everyone else does, which is, I'm so sick of people like just defining a problem
Yes.
instead of being like putting
How to
forth a
fix it.
with a solution. You know,
Yes.
like everyone in the world is just screaming at each other trying to define a problem. And I'm like,
It's
you guys are dumb.
well understood. Like, most people don't know how to put words to it. Like, I think most people are trying to put words to what they see around them.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%, bro. I feel you, man. Well, Matt, I could go on with this conversation, and I hope we get a chance to talk soon. But I'm pulling into the driveway, brother.
Awesome. I'm glad I could keep you awake. That was awesome. I'm glad.
Yeah. No, it's good to not your normal usual small talk, you know. So I'm down with that.
I enjoy it, man. I missed you, man. It's been fucking years and years and years. Like, where the hell have I
I'll
been?
be here.
You've been there.
Like,
I just haven't, I think, is what it is.
That's all right. Well, it's good to have you back in the States, man. You're here for one hell of a party in a couple of months. You know?
I came back just in time. Do you know where I was before? Okay?
Yeah.
Like, my October was spent commuting down a nude beach from my bungalow across a nude beach with, like, sexy yoga girls. It wasn't even like fat old people, to my co-working space that had a beautiful sunset. It was paradise. We actually were like, oh, we'll go back to the States for a couple weeks. We were supposed to be here for 3 weeks. I could still be there. And no, this is where, yeah. I'm in my mom's house.
Then full circle.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. Well, man, if you ever come up this way, if you're ever up North Florida, I can't go anywhere. I can't go more than 150 miles. So says the general.
Hey, dude, you shouldn't. You got a good thing, and to be fair, you're good at what you do. They deserve to have you. So.
Yeah. I wish it, but no, not allowed to go more than 150 miles from the base.
Yeah, no, stay there, man. It's gravy. It's where you like. It's where you know what I mean. It's home. But
if you get some wanderlust.
I actually have been. Like, I've been thinking about it. Where the fuck I want to go. And, like, nowhere sounds good. It all sounds like shit, to be fair. I've actually even thought about, like, getting a little camper and, like, just roam around America and Johnny Appleseeds and shit. I don't know.
Well, make sure you stop on your list of stops if you do that. So,
yeah. Okay. That'd be cool.
I'll take you out to the flight line.
I'm okay with that. Like, you got 2 kids now. You're actually, it's, like, safe to stay at your house now. You're trustworthy and stuff.
I'm gonna run in and see him, man. So it's good talking to you, bro.
Good night, man.
Stay good.
Bye.
Talk soon. Bye.
Oh, there it was. That's my idea. We'll get there.